We are back again. You have decided to sign up to waste an hour of your day hanging out with us. This is Think and Link. Brand New World is our new name. If you haven't heard already, we dropped the pants optional, much to the anger and frustration of our last guest, Mr. Mark Ritson. He liked our old name, but we're doing this in a seasonal way. We want to be more optimistic. So it is Think and Link, Brand New World. We're doing a couple of other things different this time too. We're going to run a little short commercial on Capsule. We're going to try that, see how that works. You know, experimentation, new year, new interesting stuff. Plus it's Super Bowl, so I'm not going to give too much away on that. And I'm going to give the and then we have these two amazing guests that are exciting for me on a number of levels. One, because it's vodka, and who doesn't get excited about vodka? And there's a wonderful connection back to Minnesota and back to Mark Ritson, which is amazing to me on so many levels. And then we have Eataly and also new venture in Franco. And that's, I mean, if you haven't been to Eataly, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, because if you haven't been to Eataly, you have not experienced something absolutely amazing. But I'm going to first hand it over to Danielle, who's going to give a word for our sponsor, one of our sponsors, Capsule.
Hey, Capsule fans, we have a great story for you this week. For those of you who remember the Super Bowl in Minnesota, Capsule was the team behind the Rush to Recycle brand and campaign. It all started with our friends at PepsiCo alerting us to a declaration the then CEO, Inra, had made. She wanted this to be a waste-free event. The effort was an abundance of learning activities, a commercial at halftime, and even volunteers at each receptacle to help people put their recycling, compost, and trash in the right bin. The results were amazing. 90% of waste was either recycled, reused, or recovered. For a first-time event of this scale, the outcome was worthy of our community here in Minneapolis and St. Paul. For more information on this story, we have two great sources for you: a QA blog post with Michelle, the head designer on the effort, and the case study itself, outlining the results. Wait a minute, why don't we just call up Michelle and ask her what it was like and what she remembers from this effort? Michelle, you played an essential role in the PepsiCo Rush to Recycle work. What do you remember from this special project?
When I stepped foot into that convention center for the first time, it really hit home for me. It was amazing to see how great of an impact a small firm like Capsule could have on the world. It was really amazing seeing all of our team's hard work come to life as well.
Thanks, Michelle. You're right. A small, dedicated team can make a big impact with great design. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the big game.
Bravi. Bravi.
Oh, fabulous. Oh, that was great. Okay, so back to our guests and to our event. We have Franco, who used to be at Eataly. He was a co-founder formerly at Eataly. And also now has a new venture that we'll talk about as well. And then we have Rodney, and he is the CEO and president of Belvedere Vodka. And as I mentioned previously, there's some wonderful connections back here to Minnesota and all the way back even to our, all the way back, because, you know, Mark Ritson is all the way back because he's so historic, all the way back to our previous guest, Mark Ritson. So I'm going to allow them to do their introductions, and then I'm going to have Kelly ask the first question of each of them. So Rodney, do you want to go first? Give a little bit more background and on your background.
Okay. Well, I've been in this role for about 3.5 years, and Belvedere is part of Moet Hennessy, which is part of LVMH. And I've been with the group for 10 years. I worked in the wine industry in California prior to that, and did the launch of General Motors for OnStar for General Motors, and started out at Johnson & Johnson, Procter & Gamble. So longtime marketing guy, moved into a different role. Sorry.
That's a great, that was like
was
perfect.
Transition.
Perfect.
I love that. Franco.
Well, basically, this is Franco, and my background, I spent the last 10 years working on Eataly format all over the world, and my role was a mix between marketing, strategic marketing, and brand proposition. So I was one of the co-founder of the company in charge even of the online business all over the world and the digital marketing. And now I have, in the middle of the pandemic, I decided to follow another dream, that is the extra virgin olive oil in United States of America. So I brought in US a new venture, it's called Zucchi, and we sell organic extra virgin olive oil all over the United States of America.
Fantastic. Great. So excited to have you both, Franco and Rodney. Thanks again. And I feel like we're old friends. We had a great chat yesterday, and I want to continue along the theme. I'm going to dive right in because I think this will be interesting for our audience. We talked a little bit about, in both of your respective roles, obviously savvy marketers, but there's also the consideration around the supply chain and how this pandemic has impacted both of your businesses with regard to the supply chain. If we could talk a little bit about global supply chains in the post-pandemic world and what that might look like. We've obviously seen the supply and demand shock that followed the global shutdown, and also those vulnerabilities in both production strategies and the supply chains across industries. So if you could both dive in a little bit about what challenges you're seeing and share your perspectives around how you're doing in your role, how we're making the supply chains more resilient during this time and moving forward. Who would like to start?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Sure. So for us at Belvedere, the distillery is located about 45 minutes outside of Warsaw in Poland. Mm-hmm. And from a supply chain standpoint, most of our components are Polish origin. The strip stamp that goes across the bottle is actually produced in Italy. And, you know, we have been so efficient in terms of just-in-time systems. It was a shock, really, to go through the pandemic, to have the lockdown. Mm-hmm. We were fortunate that our non-Polish vendor partners really wanted to get their workforces engaged and keep people employed. So we did have some successful workarounds, but it was eye-opening in terms of really rethinking what crisis management looks like. Mm-hmm. And for us, the bigger challenge had to do with the political spectrum of tariffs being waged on both sides of the pond and Brexit, which really complicated inventories and how to manage them.
So it's an ongoing process, right? There's no solution now. It's continuing to iterate and see how we make those changes. So no, great, Rodney, thank you for sharing. Franco.
Yeah, I think it's still ongoing challenges that we have to face even in 2021. So in our case, was very difficult to find a way to bring the products from Europe in United States of America, no? Mm-hmm. Due to temporary trade restrictions, shortages, and even was difficult to find a carrier because there was a shutdown basically all over the world. And there was a huge demand after the first 3 months of the shutdown during last year from China, no? So basically, logistics standpoint, on the other side, probably my team hate me because I try to stress our logistic and operation team to find a plan B, you know, right. To try to have a new calendar, try to have a new local supplier, temporary for selling our products and try to follow the request from our customers here in the United States of America and keeping an high quality level of the product that we have on the market.
Right. But a lot of go ahead, Aaron, you were going to jump in.
Oh, no, I was going to jump in with questions, but if you have something else, Kelly.
No, please. And I did just want to mention, because as we get into this conversation, for those that are new to Think and Link, the chat, please, if you have questions as well for our guests, please put your questions in the chat and we'll get to those as well. But no, Rodney, Franco, thank you. This is top of mind across industries, right? We talk about those vulnerabilities. So thank you for sharing your current challenges, what you're seeing and hearing, and some of the resolutions that you're putting in place.
Well, I think for just to build on one thing Franco said that was really game changing for us is that being a part of a large company, we have a sort of laborious process to validate new partners in the supply chain. That all went out of the window. And there was a lot of emphasis on moving quickly and rapidly to validate new customers. So new partners. So in a way, it sort of altered the business model, the resources we put against the supply chain, but also the way we approach it.
Great point.
Yeah,
Great.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Part of our discussion previously was about this relationship that's a relationship with brands and how that's changed, which I thought was interesting that came up. We've gotten this far into the pandemic and really haven't talked on that in any specific way. And you each had some perspective on that, on what you've seen previously, and then maybe what you're seeing currently as far as our relationship with brands and where things are going. Rodney, do you want to start that off? Because you had some really good perspective on that.
Sure. Well, you know, being a alcoholic libation, we had the benefit of being, you know, part of the alcohol liquor channel, which was deemed critical during the pandemic and did not close down. And selfishly, I'm not complaining, but you know, the logic behind it, I don't know. So there was terrific demand for product at retail, and the business took off, which was wonderful. We probably saw 5 years of development in terms of e-commerce compacted into just a matter of weeks in terms of how rapidly they came up to speed in being able to add new jurisdictions and servicing expansions of product line. So that part was great. For us, what was really challenging is the lockdowns of restaurant, bars, and nightclubs, because however that part of the business, the retail part grew, just wasn't big enough to offset you know, the fact that there are 11% of Americans who only really drink alcohol outside of the home. They don't really drink at home at all. So, so what happened, what has happened and continues to happen is that we are really focusing on people who are comfortable drinking at home. In the specific case of Belvedere, a number of consumers have said, you know, I just got tired of wine and I wanted to add something more to my repertoire. People who are intimidated about making cocktails. Do I have the right equipment? Do I have the right accoutrement to really produce these drinks and make them flavorful? Is it too much work? Had time on their hands and really began to explore it. So we saw a huge consumption of online recipes really take off. I think some of these changes will remain. And certainly, you know, in any time of crisis, consumers retreat back to quality, and they retreat back to brands that are familiar, that they trust, that they believe they're going to get a good value for the money. And that was beneficial for Belvedere, and yet a challenge at the same time, because we were in the throes of launching a new vodka, a malted rye vodka. Belvedere's made with rye. And in order to tell that story, this is the way vodka was made up until the late 1800s in Poland and the Eastern Bloc. You really need the whole in-store experiential, in bars, in restaurants, and we lost a lot of that. So it's been a big challenge in terms of delivering new product news in this sort of condition.
Yeah, and is it challenging to get people to experiment, to do something new like that, try new products?
It is, because you know, first you have to have a confidence in the channel that you're buying from, if it's online, and second, that just the mood in Europe and North America is one of caution because of the health crisis that we're all facing. So people haven't been quite in the spirit of, oh, let's try something completely new, as much as they might be otherwise. So it remains a challenge, and you know, until we really reach that light at the end of the tunnel, we're still working through finding additional ways to support people experimenting.
Yep.
Great. Franco, you brought this up as a subject, so give me your perspective on this.
I have to tell you that I'm super excited about the new relationship between brands and customers. You know, well, don't get me wrong. It happened what happened, and there was a leader, Winston Churchill, who said, "Never waste a good crisis." No? So basically, what I see is that now for companies, the stage is the world. So the world is open. It was like another reset that we had last year, no, due to the pandemic. And the companies, they have to be open to customers. So they have to communicate in the right way. They have to demonstrate the unique selling point. They have to try to explain to customers what they are doing, if they are doing something very good or in the right way, no? Very open, even for suppliers or relationship that they have in a country, like institutional, government, etc. No? And if you think about basically what happened in the past, companies very successful, they had a strong and solid relationship with the final customer, no? Mm-hmm. And we need to do that. That's my vision and my mission, even in my new venture. So I would like to have a solid relationship with my customer and try to explain to them why we are doing business in our way, you know, and build a solid relationship all over the channels that we have right now: e-commerce, online, in-store. Right. That's the new challenge.
New way of telling your story. And it's that we talked a little bit even yesterday about this, the authenticity, and how can you tell your story, the brand story, the narrative in authentic ways through digital. I'll take that a step further and ask the question. So we hear this term tossed around a lot, digital transformation, and the impacts that has and has had on specifically the CPG industry in the last 5 years. Curious for both of you, we've touched on a little bit with e-com, but what's your perspective on this with regard to organizational shifts, right, to this digitalization? And is it a benefit? Do you see it as a benefit to the industries, your respective industries, and embracing these new technologies, even the data collection component of this? How do you see this playing out and continuing to evolve?
We got to start with Rodney on that one.
Yeah, so sometimes it feels a little bit like a Pandora's box, you know, because on the one hand, and I agree very much with you, Franco, it's great to build a direct relationship with consumers. And since a beverage alcohol goes through a third party by legislative fiat, we cannot, as a producer, own retail. We're that much more encumbered. So from that standpoint, it's attractive. I think that one of the challenges that we face is it's very difficult now for consumers to have a real sense of arbitration of what's fact. You know, one of the challenges, you know, that we face is that we have competitors who say their vodka is gluten-free. Well, all vodka is gluten-free. In fact, all distilled spirits are gluten-free. Gluten is a huge molecule, and you catch it in the first pass of distillation. You know, Belvedere is distilled 4 times, so there's no gluten. But people don't know this, right. And you know, you don't have access to your friendly neighborhood bartender, maybe, and he or she is quite informed. So. So you're really much more subject to the information sources that you get. And that remains a big challenge for us, to have a big enough presence to be able to arm people with a lot of the facts. Belvedere is all natural. and we have no additives because Poland appellates or regulates vodka production the way the US, France, or Italy appellates wine, such that it's illegal for us to add sugar or emulsifiers into vodka, and not the case for those produced elsewhere. But people don't really know this, and it's a lot to explain. So that part is still yet to take shape, and I think the combination of having experiential engagements with consumers as well as some of these online channels later will be most beneficial for us.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yes, thank you, Rodney.
I do agree with Ronnie. It's sometimes when you talk about digital, people immediately they think about okay, e-commerce platform selling online products, but at the end of the day, and I had this conversation several times with Italian companies or European companies bringing products in US. So when you open a market and you want to have a relationship with your customers through the digital assets, so you need to switch your marketing team on your mind. You want to be a media company, not only a platform for selling products online, no? So you have to control your brand, and you want to produce content for your audience. You have to be a media company, no? And that's a completely different game.
Right.
So I have to tell you a story. When we opened Italy, first stores in our country, in Turin, and after all over our Italian country. So basically, when we started the website for Italy, was a nightmare to try to understand how we can follow our customers outside the store. No, was 12 years ago, completely different world, completely different digital platform, etc. No, and I had when I was 20 years old a working experience into the radio station. No, so I tried to find a way to have for each Italy store a producer, called a producer. So a guy in charge of the store telling the story what is going on today at Milan store, no? And that was really successful because we opened a new way to talk with our customers through our website. Now that was 12 years ago, only like an institutional website telling when the store is open, how you can book a table for a restaurant, etc. No?
Right. Wow.
And I think now we have a lot of platforms, and I'm checking new platform. Yesterday I spent 2 hours with Clubhouse, no? And to try to understand the trend. That it's pretty good, that you can have a voice one-to-one or one-to people way to explain your products or your mission. And I think now it's going to be media. So the brand is going to be the media for himself.
Yeah.
Right. No, that's great. Yeah. That's a great perspective. It is a challenge to launch a new food or beverage product strictly through digital because it is experiential, Rodney, to your point. And how will we see this comeback of a parallel path of physical events, sampling, demos, and that's a retail scenario, coupled with a digital platform of telling the story, and how do you do that? So it'll be interesting to see how that continues to evolve. Thank you both.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, really helpful and interesting. Sustainability already came up in the chat, which we would expect it to, especially with these two brands and each of your backgrounds as a part of the conversation. So let's go back first to Franco on as it relates to supply chain and sourcing and sustainability as it relates to olive oil. Give me your perspective on that, and when you started this new venture, how important it was and how it wove into the decision making.
Oh yes, was well, basically we started the new venture in the middle of the pandemic, was March 2020. And I called my partner in Italy and I said, okay, come on, let's try to get the space on the next ship, and we're gonna send the product to United States of America, no? And well, basically at the beginning, for us was really successful to try to schedule the first introduction to buyers in the United States of America through a workshop online, you know? But the idea was to have like a game, like a box, a small box with a game with our brand, with inside several samples of our products, and try to explain in a webinar in a fun way during the middle of the pandemic, and outside your apartment was a nightmare, no, due to the COVID cases increasing, no. Try to make something fun. Not only I'm gonna send you something and you have to try our sample and we're gonna get a commercial agreement. No, we're gonna talk about the fun, how our country is beautiful, how the biodiversity of Italy it's unique in the world, and why we have this kind of grapes, olives, and technique. That was really successful with the top buyers in United States of America. And to answer the supply chain question, on the other side was a little bit difficult, the operation. Bringing the products during the pandemic, try to get the feedback from FDA here in US, permit warehouses ready to receive the product and ship the product to our customers. So we spent time all over the Zoom and other platform online, try to figure out with a video call the operation into the warehouse, okay, how it works, and how we should get the permit or the authorization for distributing the product here in US.
The containers were all in China.
Yeah.
Oh yes, oh yes.
Makes it difficult.
It's challenging to get product here.
For us, sustainability, I see Antonia's question, has been hugely important for a long time. Interestingly, Warsaw is the greenest capital in Europe in terms of acreage of parks, and Poland is the most forested country, but it's also one of the most polluted. So our team has been working on sustainability measures going back to around 2000. In 2012, we set out a goal to cut CO2 emissions. We did it by 42% by 2017. 2018, we were the first distillery in Europe to receive a green energy grant from the European Commission to go further. So we are next month bringing online a biomass capture facility at the distillery. And it basically captures the heat and the steam as we're distilling the product and converts it into clean energy, such that within 12 months we'll be carbon neutral in terms of our production. And when we're not distilling, we're connected to the local town of Girardov's electricity grid. And they currently burn coal for electricity. So they'll be able to switch to green energy. It's a wonderful, wonderful story. And normally, you know, we would share this maybe with some of our key suppliers or in an environmental conference. You'd be shocked to know how many young people are genuinely interested in the story, and it's a driver of purchase intent. Mm-hmm. Before the pandemic, we had done a bunch of research, you know, to inform our new advertising campaign, which is really about the fact that we're all natural. And we studied consumer attitudes in our 5 biggest markets: US, UK, France, Germany, and Australia. And trust me, with that mix, people never agree on anything, ever, ever. And historically, we've had different messages, you know, in Europe and other parts versus other parts of the world. The one thing everyone coalesced around, this is pre-pandemic, was the importance of the environment, mm-hmm. and concerns around climate change and concerns around nature. So when you layer the pandemic onto it as well, it's very top of mind, not only what's happening in terms of the environment, but what sorts of things am I consuming? Where are they from? What are the origins? Do I really understand and agree with and approve the ingredients, you know, of a product I'm going to consume or share with my family and friends? So there's been a huge shift, I would say, in the last year or two, in terms of really elevating concerns around environment, concerns around nature to a top principle in terms of decision making for consumers.
Yeah.
Yep.
That is great to hear.
Yeah.
No.
Ronnie touched the right point, the purchase intent. It's completely different.
Right.
Completely different now. And in our case, for the extra virgin olive oil, we got the chance to guarantee the sustainability and the transparency of our products. And we have a QR code on the label here in US that our customers can scan the QR code and they can get exactly the information where we got the olives from that kind of bottle.
So it's full transparency in the supply chain, right?
Yeah. And for us, we have 100% traceability of the rye that we actually use. And no one ever thought that was interesting before. But in fact, we supplied by only 8 farmers in Poland. So we know which plot, which land, at what time we've gotten rye from where. And that's of value, that's of interest to people. Because it's more assurance of the quality and of environmental integrity.
Right. Yes. It's farm to table and at a whole nother level. Which it used to be a nice to have, and it's almost an expectation now that brands are transparent and we know where our food and our ingredients are coming from. So interesting, but it comes with its challenges for sure. That leads to, and this is a pretty broad question, but is related to what we're talking about when we're thinking through new ways of doing and within our organizations, how you've made those changes to meet consumer demand and expectations. What role, generally speaking, does innovation play in both of your organizations, and how, because you're both global companies, how do you harness these, in an incubator sense, harness these ideas and then bring them to scale within your organizations? Anything you can share there would be interesting.
Sure. Well, we spend a lot of time with consumers, and as well as the trade, mixologists, bartenders, and in great venues like Eataly, where you can really experience a lot from culinary. That's a free
well done,
plug.
Rodney. Well done.
I live near Italy here in New York City, and it's great. It's great. Trust me.
Thank you.
But what's fascinating is the ability to really explore from a alcohol standpoint, create different liquids is very different from being able to scale it. There's 16,000 spirits brands, for instance, available to consumers at any time here in the United States. So the vastness of the amount of choice people have, and all of these subcategories, it just makes it very difficult, to your question, Kelly, which is a great one, to get to scale. And that remains the big challenge. We could create many more artisanal sorts of products, but getting them to scale remains a big challenge.
Right. The expense of that too. Right. Certainly. So thank you, Rodney. Franco.
Yeah, I'm in the food industry, and as Ronnie mentioned before, it's like a full of culture, different countries, that you can try to get input. And at the end of the day, you have to decide at least one product where you want to scale, and it's very difficult. Yeah, it's a challenge. I think right now we're gonna see customers looking for products coming all over the world. The pandemic was a lockdown for everybody, and now we wanted to see again the world, and even it's still there are most of the countries still closed for visiting or scheduling a trip. So basically, you wanted to know much better the culture, and you wanted to know the products, and even in the future plan a trip for have a fact of it to check your products and the country. We see a lot of Americans asking for traditional products from South Italy, Sicily, Puglia, Tuscany region, and they always said, okay, I'm gonna go when the country is open again, so I'm gonna go, I wanna see where you make the products, where are people and face. It's very nice. So I think we have another chance again to innovate into the distribution and to bring new products or new format into the market and have a direct link with the customers to bring them all over.
Right. Global travel through digital. How do we do
Exactly.
that? Right.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. I do want to, as we're kind of getting to this stage, we talked about this previously in our call about the fact that, we think we can see the end of the tunnel. We're not sure if the light at the end of the tunnel is a train or if it's actually the end of the tunnel, but we are at least hopeful about that. I'm curious from each of you, actually, Rodney, what you did right as this started, how did you, personally and professionally respond to this as a business? Because you kind of hinted at some of that stuff that happened, the decision-making and the becoming extremely agile.
Well, our first impulse was to keep everyone safe. And, some of our Polish colleagues were saying, it's well known in Poland that they just don't have the infrastructure if the virus really got out of control, and the hospitals could very easily become overwhelmed. So they were very assertive in closing the borders quickly. We had pretty stringent requirements. Vendors could not come onto the distilling campus, but had to leave deliveries at the gate, and we had a different shift that would bring materials in and out, and A and B staffing and the testing all at once. And knock wood, we didn't lose a day, and we didn't lose anyone to becoming sick in 2020, which was great. But what was really different for us is that there are probably about 50 people in finance operations who never worked remotely. So our biggest challenge when the pandemic started was to get laptops in Poland. Because all of a sudden, people who've never worked at home needed their laptops. And I think what was also interesting was what a polarizing impact working from home has had on the team. For some people, it's been Valhalla. They can hang out with their kids. They've got all this space in the house. No more commute. This is great, fantastic. Goodbye, New York traffic and commute. For other people, it's been a nightmare with the kids hanging from the ceiling, and there's no school, and there's no nanny, and both parents working. So real challenges. And then we have quite a few international colleagues who may be here with us. They don't have any relatives locally. They may not, be married. They tend to be younger, and may not even be in a relationship. So we had to really work to over communicate, to keep people in the loop, but also to check on people and their mental states to make sure that they were well equipped to handle the level of isolation that has happened. When we did our first virtual cocktail hour, I thought it was remarkable. Probably 2/3 of this is just for our team, of the participants didn't have a drink. They were just so happy to just talk to everyone and it not be a Zoom meeting, and they're not, on the hot seat for what do I have to do next. It's just communicate. So I think one of the things that has come out of this is productivity never took a hit. People have been incredibly conscientious and productive during this whole thing. But the mental toll it's had has been very uneven in terms of its impact.
Wow. Yeah, that is really good. Franco, you got some really good stories from the beginning of this. I want to make sure everybody hears.
Yeah. So basically, yesterday we talked about it. So what happened during the beginning of 2020? Italy was running a very well, as usual, year, but especially January and February are good months, and all over the world, globally, restaurants full of people, market always packed, and online doing pretty well. At the second week of March, done, shut down. So we got to close the stores. So basically for the top of the building to zero, and that was something completely different. We never had something in the past like that. And we got to follow our customers again and try to understand how the company can improve immediately the digital assets. So we got a way to extend our online team, first of all, and with this struggling with people that they have to work at home and they don't have the PC, or they usually work with share space, in a good environment. So it was really tough, but at the end of the day, we got a way to improve the online sales. And that was good. And we got a lot of feedbacks from customers, customers leaving. I got a case of New York, for example, that people leaving, they were leaving New York to Hamptons, to countryside, upstate, asking, oh, how we can get your product. So please try to extend the service. So we're gonna plan a schedule with several families so we can get the same order for more families. And that was great. It was pretty unique in US, and I think we play a good game. And talking about team and people, we try to try to have even hangout, funny hangout online with our employees, spend time together talking about the family, the kids, not only the business,
Right.
And that was good. Yeah, I think it's something that we have to continue during 2021, and try to plan with HR, something like that. Consistency.
Right. Because culture is king. We've had a lot of discussions about how do we maintain culture during a pandemic. We're all at home. How do we do this? And it's again ever changing, but interesting to hear how you're both moving things forward. A question related. We want to focus on the positive changes we've seen over the last 12 months. Not only operational efficiencies, but what behaviors or the changes, how we've adapted and have accelerated those adaptations during a pandemic. What are some examples of what you've seen within your own organizations or other organizations that perhaps aspirational? Anything you could specifically touch on?
Well, I think for us, it's created a sort of much more egalitarian sort of work culture where everyone is visible, and it feels less hierarchical and more informal, familiar, direct, and I think that will continue. We're part of this Moet Hennessy portfolio with Dom Perignon, Krug, and Veuve Clicquot, and all of these luxury champagnes and cognacs and such. And we're moving to a new office, ironically, in another month. And we've had long, very difficult conversations about what the office should look like. People have to have offices. It would not be luxury not to have offices. I think people are over that now, and much more embracing of open spaces and sharing and, sort of communal work environment. So I think it's changed that a lot. And then the mixologists are our core trade, and, we found ways to add value to them and to support them, because it's been just a devastating hit with the lockdown. And when laws were loosened so that they could serve cocktails to go, one of the things that we published and really pushed out with a set of tools was how to batch cocktails, because there's certain ingredients you cannot put with others and they don't remain stable or taste so great after a while, and others and because we do so many events, we're more accustomed to thinking that way than the average bartender who's making things fresh all the time. So there were things like that we could continually do to support them and help them during this situation that remains important. And I think, we all come away with a bit of a heightened sense of empathy, just because of the devastating impact this has had on some of the hospitality sector in particular here in New York. The estimate is that 1 in 5 or 1 in 4 restaurants may not reopen, by July. So it's tough.
That is tough.
Tough, yeah.
Wow.
Ronnie, I have a question for you. Did you try something like at home to teach to your customers to explain how to recognize a good cocktail or a bad cocktail? No. Yeah,
so we do seminars, and we have ambassadors who are really good at it. We did a little mini series with Martha Stewart, because both her parents are from Poland, and Martha was really ready for the vodka. Yeah, we needed to slow her down a little.
You heard it here
Martha
first.
knows how to party. Martha knows how to party. But there were definitely opportunities online to really help people feel much more comfortable and familiar with this, because it's really about what you like. There's no magic. Only this way is the best way, and that way is not so good.
Oh yeah,
it's what you enjoy.
But it's a good chance, in spirit market, coffee as well, I'm a big fan of mocha, the traditional Italian way to make the coffee, but you have to know how to make a good coffee. We see a pretty good interest into the extra virgin olive oil business as well, that we can teach to our partners and customers how to storage, for example, a bottle of extra virgin olive oil, or how to check if the bottle is good or not, and the taste inside. You can feel and you can taste a different region all over the world.
Well, I have a question for you, Frank.
Let me see.
So given what's happened, does Eataly still have the same zeal for expanding more broadly in the US once we come out of this pandemic?
But Italy wants to be successful in the United States of America, and they have a pretty solid retail plan for new opening. So they still the format brick and mortar stores with inside restaurants, market, and we have inside the retail stores there are projects called La Scuola, the school. So basically they teach every day. Well, now it's online. Before was live at the stores, starting from 6 p.m. until 10 p.m. There were classes teaching about wine, pairing cheese and wine, how to cook like an Italian, something like that. So the format it's basically is the same, even after the pandemic, I think. And well, the online. I'm sure that the online business is getting more attention right now, and how restaurants can mix the experience into the stores and outside the stores, selling the product for delivering.
That's great. I envision this collaboration between Franco and Rodney with the Zoom. We have Belvedere. And
I can talk for hours with him. He's an amazing guy.
We definitely have an opportunity.
That's great. And can I get an invite if there's a...
Absolutely. Everyone, please.
Great.
Love that.
Yeah.
That's
Thank you.
wonderful. So a last question, inspired stories that you're seeing out there coming out of this, things that are giving you hope. We're seeing things that are indicating that that is not a train at the end of the tunnel, that that is actually light. Are there things that you're seeing that you can, because it's amazing for us and for our audience to be able to see through others' eyes. I mean, just on the basic fact of, from what you're hearing from Italy and New York, you know, but also just broadly, globally, things. Are there any snippets you want to share with us? Rodney, you want to start?
Yeah, I think you know, it's interesting. The whole career of bartenders, mixology, is relatively new, and a lot of the more esteemed ones, you know, will tell you that they got into it through serendipity or some sort of circumstance. It started out part-time and then it ended up being a career. But I think there's a lot of consciousness about really supporting people in the hospitality sector. We're hearing that tips are up for delivery guys. And, you know, part of it is, you know, with the Ring sort of doorbells, you can see the care that people, you know, are really giving in terms of support and service. But everybody's really much more conscious and aware of some of the sacrifices people have gone through. And I think that's a wonderful thing. And so I'm looking forward to the time when more of us can congregate and get together actively outside of it, you know, with this new sort of understanding and appreciation of the people who provide the service.
That's great. Yeah, tips, seeing tips. That's good.
We gotta to support the hospitality.
Yes.
We gotta to support. Yeah, they are making a great job, even during the pandemic, with delivering food for people. And I'm really curious to see even the future of the offices spaces, no? Like a creative hub, mixing experience inside in a subtle way. And I'm sure it's gonna be interesting. Personally, I believe in New York City for 10 years now. And every single day I'm inspired from New York, you know? I wanted to see the street of New York back again, you know, and people in New York to see the next level of the experience. I'm sure we're gonna get it.
Yes.
Yeah. And one hopeful sign, because Kelly wants to end on a hopeful note. If you look at the experience in China, in Wuhan, and some of the cities that were impacted early on, and now have hopefully come out of the worst of the pandemic, there's something that we're seeing that the demographers have called revenge shopping and revenge partying. People want to make up for lost time. So they're much more willing to go out, spend, be social, hang out, see friends, see family. And I think that's great. That's great.
Yes. Yep. The pendulum swinging back. Yep. For sure.
I mean, you kind of would expect that. That's great. Go ahead, Kelly. No, go ahead, Kelly.
We love to ask our guests this at the close of our session, and I'm putting you on the spot, so I know we haven't prepared you for this. But simple question: a book, movie, or TV series that you've seen recently or read recently that you would recommend as a departing thought for today?
Interesting.
And it doesn't, it certainly can come in, if it's comic relief of some sort, or just any perspective you have on something you've enjoyed recently that you could share.
It's okay if it's The Bachelor.
Franco, you gotta go first. I need a moment to think
No,
about it.
I was thinking about, well, during the pandemic, I got a chance to review a couple of books from the history of the Second World War, especially Churchill and other leaders. And other things, I will say I was very shocked and inspired from the NBA, how they change the way or playing basketball in the United States of America in the arenas. So that was something, the impact and the result, I think it's very good, you know. Even last year and now the new season, they mix immediately the experience with the digital world. And I got chance to get a couple of inspiration speech on YouTube, but I don't remember nothing special.
So it wasn't that inspirational. It was a, I remember, no, that's, yes. Sports, how sports has evolved. That's a good one, Franco. How they continue to entertain us, right, in a new way. Thank you. Rodney.
Yeah, I would definitely echo what you said about sports, and return the favor in terms of football or soccer. The players have been quite inspirational in some of the charitable things that they've done, and given the vastness of their followings, been very motivational. So that's been fantastic. I have not had a chance to watch a lot of TV or film like I normally enjoy doing, but so many people were talking about it, and Antonio's even posted on it, this Lupin show. I just saw the first episode last week, and it's interesting because it's sort of a fast-paced crime thriller that's American in its structure and format, but definitely French in its execution. So I think that's quite interesting.